Start this thing as well. We're live, so we're live now, so we can't talk about the good stuff that we were talking about.
We're live, coming at you live.
Yes, but that's all well and fine. So we've started the show, the Enormous UFO Super Show number 31. Doing this on Friday, the 3rd of February, 2017. Jeff is here with Matt, who just came back from the grocery store because he wanted to get in on the Super Bowl deals.
And I'm currently cooking spaghetti dinner.
Yeah, I had just before the show started, because we're starting late because we're doing it at 7:45 right now as we're doing this.
Yeah, sorry.
I had 2 twice-baked potatoes.
Ooh, yummy.
That took an hour in the oven.
Oh, wow.
So
in the microwave, man. Microwave them.
Yeah, but okay. You got me off on this now. The thing is, stuff that takes a long time to go put in the oven, yeah, it's better to do it in the microwave. But then what I've seen more often than not is anything that has to be in the microwave for a long period of time tends to taste like crap. I'll eat stuff that the microwave dinner things that take like 3 or 4 minutes, but anything that takes longer than 3 or 4 minutes, it better have oven directions because I'm not fooling around with it.
I got
because you. I had a shepherd's pie, smaller shepherd's pie that I put in the oven. It could have gone in the microwave, and I'm like, because shepherd's pie, of course, has mashed potatoes on top. I'm not putting that in the microwave. I want my mashed potatoes to taste like mashed potatoes, not like rubber.
True.
So there's certain things that you can put in a microwave and certain things you can't. Even if there's microwave directions on it, I'd rather put it in the oven anyway. So
I hear that. That's valid.
But anyway, so we went off. So we've gone off on how to cook stuff.
Tangent number 1 for the night. We're only 10 minutes in.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll go off on probably several more tonight. Okay. For example, the groundhog thing, the disaster about that. I'm sure we'll probably start in on that. For example,
let's start on that now. That one's a good one.
For example, this that I have right now that Matt sent me.
Yeah, that's great. That's just great. That came from a guy in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I tweeted it out to, I tagged James Spann on Twitter, and he retweeted it, and it didn't go viral, but a lot of people retweeted it and commented and stuff like that. It was cool. But I just love the fact that there's somebody out there that kind of gets it.
Yeah.
And kind of played on the whole not my president thing and poke fun at Punxsutawney Phil as well.
Of course, Punxsutawney is not the only one. There's like 6 million of them, it seems like. But
yeah, it seems like every town has a groundhog now.
Yeah. The thing is, a lot of people are saying Punxsutawney Phil, a.k.a. stupid, said 6 more weeks of winter. Well, a lot of the weather people were like, how can you see your shadow when it's snowing there, which it was. And then I know Justin Gertz, who's at Channel 9 here, said, well, how can he never see a shadow with all those spotlights on him? He's certain to see it. Because he made the snide remark about that. And I'm thinking, well, duh. And I'm thinking that all these people, all the people that are like, they do the speaking into or whatever, I'm thinking,
yeah,
why don't you just shoot them and just burn the place down? I could care less about the town. The only reason it's famous is because of some stupid day in February, and then nobody cares about it for the rest of the year. It's true. Nobody really cares about Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, outside of February 2nd. Except that it's a nice place to go to. But, if you wanted to try and see the groundhog on any other day, do you think it's still in that hole on any other day of the year? Heck no.
Nope.
They put it in there the night before. They bring it out.
Unless you are a big fan of the movie, which
Well,
is
that
starred by
the movie was filmed in the town.
Yeah, but the movie was also the star of the movie was also a semi-local celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Who has very close ties and very close connections to the Quad Cities. In fact, his mother lives in Moline.
Yeah. So
there's that.
And the fact that Bill Murray's character played a meteorologist.
That's true.
For a station in Pittsburgh. So see, there's connections. But that's not, the groundhog doesn't get a salary. So maybe the groundhog will say, maybe we should go and find the groundhog on August 2nd, which is halfway through the year, between 6 months after Groundhog Day. And if it sees its shadow, it'll be 6 more weeks of summer. If it doesn't, it'll be an early fall.
I like that idea.
It's like, they don't come up with these good ideas. It's like, who cares? There's the people that were saying, oh, 6 more weeks of winter. I'm still waiting for winter. Because there's been no winter.
It's February 3rd in eastern Iowa right here, and outside my back door, there's no snow. There's no snow anywhere.
Nope.
You have to go up to Highway 20 to find snow.
Yeah. I was with my mother. I went to, we just said that, I don't know if this is really bad or not, but my mother and I have gone to the going out of business Kmart sales. I think we've been to like 10 Kmarts going out of business in the last 2 years, going back to when my dad was still alive.
Oh, yeah.
And the stores around here that are closing, the Kmarts are Dubuque, Waterloo, and Platteville, Wisconsin. So the one day we drove up to Dubuque and Platteville, and then the next day after that we went up to Waterloo. Well, when we went to Dubuque and Platteville, there was a lot of snow. There was snow on the ground up there. We got maybe up to about Dubuque and we could see snow. We got up to Platteville and we could see the snow was accumulating to the point there was at least 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And this is what really got me. We saw the Platte Mound M. It was not there.
Really?
And the snow had covered it up.
Really?
I could tell it was there because you had to be almost directly near it to just barely see the outline of the M, and you could still see it.
Yeah.
It looked like a ski area, like somebody could go to the top of the Platte Mound M and ski down it, which of course you couldn't do because it's bumpy with all the rocks. There's not that much snow. But I bet if there was like 15 or 20 inches of snow, there'd be people that probably go up those steps and go skiing down and cross that road and hope to gosh there's no car coming or something.
Oh, that'd be sled heaven. That would be sled heaven.
It would if the snow was not dry, because you would probably still hit the rocks and tumble.
Yeah,
unless you were far enough away from the M that you weren't going to get hit by the rocks, but
you would have to. Yeah, you'd have to have a pretty thick blanket of snow, like probably
wet.
20 inches.
Wet snow would do it. Wet snow would do it.
Yeah, wet snow on top of a good 20-inch pack, I would say would probably do it.
But we haven't had that in 4 or 5 years,
at least.
I mean, because I know there's been all these anniversaries. There was the anniversary we had of the Groundhog Day blizzard from 2011.
Yep.
Which I
was in Egypt for. I missed that one.
Well, yeah. Do you want the highlights of it? Because I was out at my apartment building at the time.
Sure. Let's run it down.
All I remember about that was I was stranded in my apartment for 2 days.
Really? Because
we had 6-foot drifts covering my door going outside, and all the doors leading out had 6-foot drifts.
Oh, wow.
We had to get dug out. That has never happened. But the funny thing is, I had the van at the time, my parents' old van.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Where my van was in the parking lot, there was no snow. The parking lot had been completely wiped, almost completely clean, and all the snow had drifted to the apartment building. I had never seen that before. We had 15 inches from that storm, the most of any storm that I ever witnessed in my life. Prior to that was back in, I think, 2005, we had a 13-inch snow that I was living in Springville for, and I remember that vividly, but that had been the most, and then the 15 inches from the Groundhog Day blizzard was the worst.
Huh.
I remember that because I actually have pictures of that event still on this. I have pictures of that event on my computer.
Ooh.
So I'm going to go and look for them because I do have pictures from that. That was the first storm when I got my camera, the camera I still own.
Yeah.
That was the first storm that I was able to take pictures for.
Cool.
Now I got to look for them. That's not where they are. They are in this category. February 1st, 2011. Now I only took pictures from the day before when it started snowing.
And the day after?
I didn't take them the day after because I couldn't open my door.
Oh.
So it's like, so let's see. Because this is my old apartment building, so of course nobody can say I can't just say, well, I don't live there anymore. So let me see if I'm going to be able to get this to work right here. That was my, this is my, let me see. Okay, that's the parking lot. The place that was really drifted bad, this area right in here that I'm pointing to, I think, this was pretty much about wipe clean, but you see right in here. Now this is the day as the storm was starting.
Okay.
So it was just starting. It had just started snow. So you can see we already have tons of snow. That's something we don't have now. But right here, this is where it drifted really badly.
Oh, okay.
There was in the parking lot, there was about a 3.5-foot drift. When I had to get out of the apartment during the height of this blizzard, I had to go out the one door, pretty much jump over about a 4-foot drift, which I somehow got through, didn't get stuck. Had to then run around. I was running and ran into about a 4-foot drift here to then get to my van, which you can see right in here, and the van had no snow on it, which was funny.
Wow.
And you can see there. This is when it was starting to, you can see the visibility was starting to get bad because it was starting to come. And this was a few hours into the snow event, and look how much snow I already had.
Oh wow!
At that,
that's a heavy.
And
snow.
this was maybe about 8 hours into it, and it looked like this. The snow went all the way up to probably 3/4 of the way up the door. So it was at the door maybe about 4 to 4.5 feet. There were some that were the drift went all the way up to the roof, which was kind of creepy. So
that's pretty impressive, I gotta say.
Yeah. So I mean that's the wonderful blizzard, Groundhog Day blizzard. And I think Puxatawny Dumbbell probably didn't see a shadow and said 6 more, it'll be early spring now, and then we had a blizzard. Now the one thing about that was 2011. Of course, we all know 2011 was tornadoes everywhere. But
11 was kind of like the modern day crazy weather.
Yeah, 2011 just had about everything. We had one of our worst blizzards in years, and then there was a big tornado outbreak. It's kind of, and I'm thinking, if we went back, and I'm trying to think of this, there was something similar to this happened back in 1973. There was that really bad snowstorm everybody in this area remembers in April. That dumped 15 to 20 inches of snow in April. It was in mid-April, and everybody knows about it because my parents were just about to get married. They got married in May, and we had a big snowstorm a month before they got married, which my mother and father always talked about. But there was there was that, and then of course 1974 had the super outbreak. So it's like there's these events. There's certain type of events where it kind of cycles. There's like an active period and then a weak period. And when you think about it, we had big, huge blizzards and tornado outbreaks. And right now you look at it, it's kind of like we're in a weak period, kind of in a down cycle where nothing really big is happening. I don't think California minds because their drought has really dropped off because they have no exceptional drought for the first time in years.
Well, the really two big weather events I think so far this year. Well, there's many, but most are pretty much centered around the Southeast. The one that I'll start with the one that doesn't, and I'm reviewing January 2017, but there's all the major snows in the Sierra Nevada.
Yes.
And the ancillary rains surrounding the mountains, alleviating the drought. Or putting a massive dent in said drought. And the rest of the events were the single-digit cold in the Southeast, a little bit of snow and a little bit of ice, the ice storms and stuff like that. And then toward the end of the month, we had the tornado outbreak, which was a major tornado outbreak. There was, I think, what was that, January 21st, there was like 42 tornadoes in that one day?
Something like that.
In Georgia and Florida.
Yeah, I know that
2017 is starting out with a bang in my mind. Except for here.
Well, what the interesting thing was, they said January's tornado count is the highest since 1999. Because it's been the most active January for tornadoes in years.
Yeah.
And it seems like the last couple of years they were like, oh, there was no tornadoes in January. It's like, oh, why not? And now we have over 100 in January, and everybody freaks. I mean,
I think that's a sign that we're on the other side of this week period that ended. It's starting to come back up again. I think it started in 2012. Well, I think it actually started on April 28th, 2011. To be honest with you.
Well,
after the 27th outbreak, there really wasn't much of note.
Well, outside of the problem is it actually probably started in June, because you have to remember Piedmont, Oklahoma was an EF5, and Joplin was 2 days before that. So June.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. You are right. I'll stand corrected on that one.
Yeah, when you think about it, after June 1st in 2011, outside, it's not like there were no tornadoes, but it's like there was no what I would call huge outbreaks anymore. There's been if we went into the down cycle, it doesn't mean there's not going to be any, because April 28th, 2014 happened, which was a big outbreak. It just wasn't the big violent long track tornadoes in the dozens. There was maybe one or two.
Yeah.
So we're not talking, and too many people are like, well, it was April 27th. And James always has said it's a generational event. But then you have to worry. You don't need a generational event to damage or destroy your property or get yourself killed. That can happen in a seasonal event where you can only have 2 tornadoes, but the one comes down your house and you get hit and you get killed. Well, that's your time. Doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah, that's true. April 27th.
So, well,
that's the day of hell on earth.
Yeah. So, I mean, the people just seem to think they're only in danger if it's like this big, oh my gosh, huge outbreak. And then you see like the events this past month, it was what I would consider a very decent outbreak for wintertime, and there were people killed. And unfortunately, they were killed in a long track tornado. I think one of the very few that was in that outbreak. If we take all the days in a row, if we do it in a sequence,
right.
Sequence, not because it was lasting over like a 3-day period.
Correct.
It was like 80 or something, 70 or 80. So
yeah, you're right. I think the number I read was 72
yeah, something like that.
over that period.
Yeah. But it's not unheard of to get that many in a sequence outbreak like that one.
Correct.
But and there was a few long track ones, but a lot of them were the typical. They were weak to moderate. They lasted maybe about up to 15, 20 minutes, and then they went away. Unlike the Albany tornado, which was on the ground for about an hour or a little over an hour. It was on the ground for 45 miles or something like that.
The Albany, Georgia tornado?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot
It
of
was 70.
people
It was 70 miles. It was on the ground for like an hour and a half, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that I know in that area. Fort Gordon, Hunter Army Airfield, Fort Stewart.
Yeah.
And what's the other base on the coast? Is that Fort? That's Fort Gordon. I'm gonna look it up on a map.
Is Fort Stewart the one at Columbus, or is that Fort Benning?
Let me look.
I like because I know that's up. There's one up by Columbus.
Columbus is Fort Benning.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That I know for sure. Fort Benning, and there were
on the northern edge of the sequence.
Yeah, there were storms, but there weren't any tornadoes that far north with that day's part of the sequence.
Yeah.
They had tornadoes close the day before, close to Auburn.
Yeah,
Alabama, which is a 45-minute drive from Fort Benning. But what I was thinking of was the town it's in. The town the base is in is Hinesville. Fort Stewart.
Yeah.
Fort Stewart. There looked like there was quite the supercell headed its way, and there was a tornado not too far from there. That was in the town of Jessup.
Yeah.
But what I think really set it apart for me was the fact that was the first high risk in that area that's ever been.
Yeah, in that
far southeast Georgia, coastal Georgia, northern Florida.
Yeah.
Around Gainesville and Ocala and Jacksonville. Actually, Jacksonville wasn't in the high; they were in the moderate risk.
Yeah. The one thing about it was the first high risk that SPC had issued since 2014, I think it was.
Correct.
And that was in Iowa, which of course that probably means it was Iowa and nothing happened. Because I remember that they said what day it was, and I'm thinking I don't remember that day. So nothing happened. I don't remember. I could probably go back and look, and there was probably a lot of severe weather, but I was like, it doesn't ring a bell to me, so it wasn't exciting. So Iowa happened. So if I don't remember it, or there was a tornado that was like, unless there was maybe like weak tornadoes, I don't remember them. I mean, high risks here typically are for damaging straight line winds. We very rarely get high risk for tornadoes here. More or less, it's derecho type events, and we've had them in the past. So,
correct.
But outside of that active weather lately, it's been dead quiet again. And next week it might not be dead quiet because I've been hearing rumblings that severe weather might start up again.
Correct.
So evidently the active period is probably going to start again, and we might get some interesting weather down in the southeast up in the Ohio Valley again. So maybe it'll snow here. We'll see.
The last high risk was June 3rd, 2014 for parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri.
Okay.
And there were, hold on a second. I'm scrolling through. There were 16 tornadoes that day, no fatalities, and the highest peak wind gust was 100 miles per hour. And I believe that was the day of the derecho show. Issued for 60% wind probability and potential derecho. Tornado probability was 10%, well short of high risk level. Extreme hail wind and some tornadoes were reported. High risk was discontinued at 01Z.
The last outlook of the day.
Yeah, it was discontinued.
That's usually when high risks are typically discontinued. Is in the last day one.
Yep.
Because that's at the end of the day when they know what's going to happen. So, and typically it's already past peak. So
that was a very, very small, it was a very small area that was under a high risk. It encompassed parts of essentially Omaha, southeast to almost Keokuk and Kirksville, Missouri.
yeah.
Des Moines was not. It didn't look like it was in the high risk. I'm looking at the SPC map right now. You could draw a line from pretty much Columbus, Nebraska to Keokuk, Iowa. And that was pretty much where it was.
Yeah.
But that was a very, very thin, small, high risk zone.
But yeah, but then if you have to go back to the last high risk in the southeast, I think it was probably, I don't know if it was 2014's event.
27th through the 30th, 2014.
Yeah.
I take that back. April 28th is when it entered the southeast.
Yeah,
Because
the 27th it was in Arkansas. The severe weather was mainly in Arkansas.
Correct. That's when Bologna got hit again.
Yeah.
The second time with a violent tornado in 3 years. It was 3 the day because they got hit on April 26, 2011, and then they got hit on April 27, 2014.
Yeah.
The F4.
So,
and then the Mayflower, Arkansas tornado as well.
Yeah. So now I'm going to have to give it to Matt because I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. So Matt has to talk for like 10 minutes. So you go ahead and keep talking.
Okay, I'll just go through some of the more notable high risk days. The last high risk day for the Midwest has been since November 17th, 2013, which was that outstanding, not outstanding in a good way. Let me preface that by saying that in that outstandingly unusual November outbreak for the Midwest, I chased that day, and that was probably the scariest chase day I ever had. That was also the day, it was a Sunday. There was a Bears game going on at Soldier Field, and there was an active tornado warning right as the game was starting, not too far south of Soldier Field. Before that was June 12th and 13th of 2013. That was for the derecho event. Let's see here. Let's see some of the more notable ones. That's interesting. Of course, there's the April 27th, 2011 sequence of outbreaks. Which is very noteworthy, of course.
very interesting to see all these high risks. To see all these high risks laid out and where they get laid out. It's very interesting. One that looks very interesting is the what date is that? No, that was the wrong one. I apologize. Where is that? Here we go. May 2003. That was a very interesting day. That was a high risk day for us here in Iowa and most of central Illinois. There was 51 tornadoes that touched down that day. And interestingly enough, only 3 were rated BF3. There was nothing larger than that. Another one is where is it at? I take that back. No, that's right. That is right. That was right. The day before that day, there was another high risk for a similar area. I'm sorry, the year before. There was 81 tornadoes on May 4th, 2003. And that was really interesting. That was during the sequence that started April 30th and ended effectively May 1st or May 11th. I apologize. And during that time, there was 401 confirmed tornadoes, most ever recorded in a continuous period of tornadic activity at the time. I think that might have been surpassed by the April 27th, 2011 outbreak series. 401 reports of tornadoes in 19 states and 1 Canadian province. 1,587 reports of large hail. That's interesting. More severe weather broke out on that week alone than any other week in U.S. history. That's also really interesting.
Okay, I've returned.
He's back. I was talking a little bit about the.
I heard you because I had the thing so I could hear it. So.
Oh, yeah. I was just getting ready to start the meteorological synopsis of the April 30th through May 11th.
Yeah,
that was a very interesting time.
The one thing about that, it was either 2003 or 2005. I can't remember. I think it was 2003 for the fact of the amount of days, but there was another case again, I think in 2005, where it seemed like every day there was a tornado outbreak. And I think 2003, that sequence, it was like a mini tornado outbreak every day.
Yeah, that was a good 12 days of outbreaks.
And if I remember, it's like if I remember. Wasn't the 2003 tornado sequence the one that produced more tornado number 2?
Correct.
More Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was more number 2.
That was more number 2. May 20.
More F3.
May 20th event was more number 3.
Correct. On Wikipedia, this is interesting. There are daily event breakdowns. April 30th. 1st, 2nd, 3rd May, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th.
You know, I think there was another, because I think 2003 and I think again 2005 were the best years for tornado chasing in the plains.
2005?
I think, or 5 or 6. I can't remember which. There was another.
2006 was a pretty hefty time.
Yeah, because I think Iowa's the most tornadoes Iowa ever had. Not Iowa was I think 06, 05, 06. We had over 100. I mean,
2000. I'm looking at an outbreak from March 9th through 13th of 2006, and this was the outbreak sequence that I chased the end of, which was the 6-state supercell that produced the Jacksonville, Illinois twins.
Yeah, the one where you decided to let's drive to the tornado and almost drive straight into one.
Yeah, with my then girlfriend. 8 months later would be my wife.
So
I'm sorry, a year and 8 months later she would be my wife.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but I've come up with I'd come up with a thing. I can't remember if I said it when I was doing the show last week myself. That I came up with the thing where you have, and if I do remember this, of having seasonal events, 5-year events, 10-year events, and the generational events. And I mentioned it on last week's show with regards to like tornadoes. I think you can almost take that into regard with any type of event. Snow, or snow, tornadoes, anything. And because I based it off of Span's thing about talking about the April 27th, 2011 being generational. But then you look at April 28th, 2014. I actually consider that to be what I would call a 10-year event, once every 10 years. This is based almost like on the flood. Like, this is a 500-year flood or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So talk about, like, generational events and whatnot. So, like, April 28th, 2014, a.k.a. Tupelo, would be considered a 10-year event because there were enough tornadoes, but there was very few what I would call long track ones. There was a few violent, but not overly so.
Yeah.
Lots of tornadoes, but most of them were weak, unless they hit your house. So, but then you had, but this was the interesting thing, because I went back and I keep going back to April 27, 2011. You might as well call this the April 27, 2011 show. The interesting thing is when I looked at it, the afternoon event was generational. You would agree. Everybody agrees on that.
Yes.
This follows what happened in the morning, which I would consider to be a 10-year event, where you had tornadoes in squall lines that didn't act like tornadoes in squall lines. They acted like big, enormous, violent tornadoes in squall lines. Because there were...
When was this? April 27th?
April 27th's morning event.
Oh, yeah. The morning event? Yeah. But
the morning event is a 10-year event because there was a lot of destruction, mostly because of straight line winds, but there was embedded violent tornadoes because everybody talks about the tornadoes in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But the thing was, if you go back and look, how many tornadoes were there in the state of Alabama before the first tornado? I think the count is somewhere around 20, 18 or 20 in the morning.
That I don't remember. I'd have to go back.
I think it's somewhere there because the thing was, now here was the interesting thing. We're talking about the entire state, not just Birmingham. There were tornadoes in northern Alabama. Weak ones, EF zeros, at 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. They were still going, but they were those weak little things that nobody cares about. But, I mean, the first tornado in Alabama in the afternoon was Coleman. And I think that is numbered 30-something, which makes it sound like there was 20-some tornadoes before that, but I don't think it was. But... They ended up with 62, I think.
Yes.
And
tornadoes in the state of Alabama in the 24-hour period that was April 27th, from midnight to midnight.
Yeah, because the storms moved into Alabama. The morning event didn't move into Alabama until after 3 a.m.
It was for the first
the first cut-in that Jason Simpson did started, I believe, at 4:18 a.m.
Actually, it was at just before 3:30 because that part's on YouTube, the morning event.
Oh, really?
The morning event is on YouTube. Span put it up last year. He put up the entire morning event. I had never seen it before until they put it up last year. And unfortunately, it gets messed up because they skip parts and then parts get repeated, which is really bad. And it's annoying, but it's really interesting because the squall line comes in. Jason is having to do everything by himself, which is hilarious, really funny.
But he did a great job.
Of course, and while we're doing that, let's just bring it back. We might as well, while we're at it, let's just do that. So I'm going to bring up the morning event because we're mentioning it, and then I'll send you the link because if you want to watch it after the fact, you can.
I'll find it. I'll find it on YouTube. That's okay.
Wait a minute. Tornado. It's funny. I could put in tornado coverage 2016. 2016. And what do I get? The April 27th, 2011 coverage. Why? Because it was put onto YouTube in 2016.
Ah.
And by the way, the thing I sent you on Twitter is the link to it. But anyway, so while we were talking about the morning event on April 27th, which I'm going to bring up because we're going to bring this up again. This is the morning event. Jason getting excited. But, I mean, you look at this, and there's nothing exciting. It's like this is a squall line. Even Jason thought it doesn't look interesting. It's just like, oh, because he said, oh, these a weekend, and we're going to have our morning newscast, and blah, blah, blah. They never had their morning newscast. They missed almost all of Good Morning America. They didn't even have most of that either.
Yep.
I mean,
I don't think they truly got off until just after 9 a.m., correct?
well, this says it goes from 3:30 till 9. It doesn't because the thing cuts off and it's somewhere a little after 8. So, I mean, they take some parts out because there's, of course, the part that is not on here where Jason Simpson got a call from his relatives and he breaks down on air. That's, of course, not on here. I don't think that needed to be seen or heard, thank goodness.
Right.
But, I mean, you look at this and, I mean, let's bring up this. I mean, you look at this. This was morning. This was the morning event. You look at that and you're thinking, okay, if you can see my cursor, if you're still looking at this.
Yep, I am.
Moving around. You wouldn't think that the major the tornadoes from this event, you would think it was from this storm. The one that's ahead of the line. And not looking at this neat little bow echo right here. That actually was the one that produced most of the damage. This one and this one sort of, and mainly this. This was this was culprit, especially this, because this seemingly had a tornado in it, which neither here nor there, but
it acted like it did.
Yeah, because the thing was, and I'm going to skip ahead. So here we go. Now here's this. Where's the tornado? You ask. Right here.
Way back
you see
there.
How it curves like an occluding low pressure system?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this was doing. It was turning into an occluding type system. And that meso low, along with another one, went all the way across into northeast Alabama, and every single one of them, every of that one of those meso lows was producing tornadoes. And that was one of the ones that went over Coleman County and hit Jason's relatives' places that the one barn ant, I think it was, that got destroyed.
Yeah, in Holly Pond.
Yeah. Because I'm going to get to the point right here. I mean, you look at this. This is one of the, that's the mesolo. This one and then this one formed into one. This one, you looked at this. If I didn't tell you what time of the day this was, you would probably think this was the afternoon event. And it's not. It's morning.
Mm-hmm.
Because you notice where this was going? This one went to Cordova. There was a tornado that went across the same area as this one, and it hit the same places again.
Yep.
I'm thinking if the morning event had not occurred, would the afternoon event have been as violent? I don't think so. Because there were so many boundaries that were left by the morning event, including this little feature that went across, and then there was a violent tornado that went almost directly on that same path. That sounds very suspicious.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's neither here nor there because we're going off on this and talking about it.
Those are supercell storms love boundaries. Whenever they hit a boundary, they tend to anchor to it and they just start dropping tornadoes left.
Yeah, and I mean, and poor Jason is still working by himself, and you can see here, find the tornadoes. It's fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
There's one there. There's one here. This is the Cordova tornado right here.
Yes.
Which is the southern one. This is the one that was up here that you saw. This one then took over, and it became the new mesolo. And the mesolo was so pronounced it had a Hurricane I feature. Remember that during the January event, there was it got so pronounced that there was what looked to be a Hurricane I in northern Georgia. Yeah. And this had the same feature, but of course it was a tornado outbreak, and that was kind of like in a rain mass, so it was not as big of a deal, but
right.
So then there's here this one produced damage, but not a tornado. This one went on to produce a tornado. This one I don't think did. And then this one down here that you can barely see, down southeast of Tuscaloosa, went on to produce an EF3 tornado.
Very interesting.
I mean, now let me do this again. I mean, and then when it finally gets near Birmingham, then James comes on. And you can even look at this. I mean, this is before, as it's in, you see, look at the curlicue right in here. I mean, this is what I would consider to be a 10-year event. You get something like this. Now, I wouldn't say you don't get it's like, well, we get squall lines all the time. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about squall lines of this violence. It's not like you're going to get something. I wouldn't even call this a derecho. I never heard anybody describing this morning event as a derecho. It was a squall line with embedded tornadoes. Should it have been a derecho? This went all the way from Mississippi all the way to Georgia. So I don't know. I've never heard it described as that.
I think classically, you can classically identify it as a derecho, but I think because of the sheer magnitude and violence of the afternoon event, I think it just got completely overshadowed. And
yeah, because here it is as it was leaving the state. It's in a much weaker state, but they were still issuing warnings in Georgia. And as you can see here, remember the meso low? It was still producing tornadoes. And they're like, oh, we're not going to have any problems, blah, blah, blah. No more tornadoes, he said. Oh, here's what people don't remember. A little before 8 o'clock in the morning. This is a tornado warning in Mississippi. Because there is Alabama, and here's Mississippi. That is not a squall line. That is a supercell.
A well-organized supercell.
Yeah, the problem was it was in an area which had been built, it was completely devoid of anything. It was rotating. But the thing was, these would be the cells that would move up into northern Alabama, into the Tennessee Valley, and produce these little weak EF zeros all morning, like 9 to 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. They were producing these EF zeros because if you look at the radar, and let's see if I can bring the radar, if I can do that. So let me stop sharing so I can find it.
Okay.
So, because I don't think we want to. We're already probably getting ourselves in trouble for actually putting this out the way. Why are you showing that stuff? You're evil. Sin Crapo is going to come after you. It's like, yeah, but Sinclair didn't own the station then, so too bad. Okay, blah blah blah. I don't want to see the damage. I'm looking through this stuff, so like, okay, I want to see the radar. Give me the radar. Give me the radar. Because they show the overall radar. There it is. Okay. Because I had it zoomed in. So, but I mean, this is the problem they had with the morning event. After the morning event, you look at this. Here's a supercell. Here's a supercell. There's a supercell, and then here's a line of storms. I mean, these just kept coming. They didn't go away. Not because one batch of storms was leaving that, oh, it's going to be fine for hours. You look at radar. I have the radar thing from Birmingham for the entire period through the morning event into the evening of the April 27th into about midnight of the next day.
Yeah.
And it after the morning event went past, you see these little tiny little specks just like this popping up and moving north. And then you had this batch that was moving north and affected northern Alabama. I mean, it didn't really stop, it just waned. I mean, there were still little showers because what's interesting is, remember the tornado in Coleman up here.
Yeah.
And I'll use this as an example, for example. Now, when they came on the air at 2 p.m. Alabama time, the storm was right here. Right about here.
Yep.
Now, I actually went back on my radar, even on their archive. The storm developed at noon down here in Greene County in southwest Tuscaloosa County, about right here. And it moved northeast to about here. And I think it was right somewhere in right here, moved northeast, past north of Tuscaloosa, past Jasper, started producing a tornado about right here, hit Coleman, went northeast, became a wedge tornado. And how many people were killed in that tornado? None.
0.
None. And the thing was, people were prepared. I mean, that's where it worked. So, I mean, the only people that died in Coleman County, I think, was from the morning event. Because there were 2 people that were killed in Coleman County. I think it was from the morning event. Because I remember, if you watch the morning event, this video, they talk about Hanceville right up here really getting nailed, and there was talk that there was somebody critical in the morning event. And I almost have a sneaking suspicion they died. I can't be certain of that because I'm not going to go and butt into people's lives going, oh, but I kind of have the sneaking suspicion that there, at least the 2 in Coleman County might have been at night, might have been the morning event. But,
right.
I mean, but the thing is, this brings up a point. This was at about 7:45 in the morning. It's a tornado. Who expects people to think there's going to be tornadoes at 7:45 in the morning? This proves a point. The tornado doesn't care what time of the day it is. You better prepare. I don't care what time of the day it is. If it's 2 a.m., 2 p.m., 8 a.m., or 8 p.m., the tornadoes, especially on days like this, on April 27th, or what it would be considered a generational event, it's almost like you've got to prepare for something to happen at any time, anywhere.
I would agree with that statement.
Now, in any other events, because we're going back to these events again, seasonal events, I mean, the ones you see every year, for example, those are the ones that, unless they affected you, you very rarely remember them outside of the local area that was hit.
Mm-hmm.
The 5-year events, roughly, there might be one tornado you might remember for a while, and then you may forget, except locally. Then there's the 10-year events that there's multiple tornadoes. For example, like Tupelo on the 2014 event, there was Tupelo, Athens, Alabama was hit, stuff like that, and even a few more outside of that. And then you just have like the generational events, the 1974, the April 2011, and whatnot. And then but then here's the interest. This brings up a point, because I thought of this when I was doing this in my head. The Moore tornado in 2013. Yes, 2013. What would you consider that to be?
What's that?
The Moore tornado in 2013, the EF5.
What would I consider it to be in terms of what?
If you consider it to be like a seasonal event, 5, 10, generational, whatnot.
More May 20th?
Yeah, May 20th. Yeah.
Well, that day was part of a fairly small but violent outbreak around Oklahoma.
Yes.
It was small in coverage, but very high impact.
Yes.
That you could almost expect every year or two to have at least one or two of those every year in the plains, in Oklahoma, Kansas, North Texas. You can almost expect
the small
something like that every
small
year.
Tornado outbreaks. The small in aerial coverage. Yeah.
But big on impact or potential impact.
Yeah. What I thought of it as maybe a 10-year event based on violence. Because you look at it, I consider, for example, more 2013, May 20th, to be a 10-year event. I would even consider El Reno to be the same way. That would happen a little under 2 weeks later.
But that's the thing. Those are 1 in 10-year events. But they happen 2 weeks apart.
And they happen 2 weeks apart. But they were because of the violence of them. And they both acted about the same. But 2013 was a year where it was just like Oklahoma, and then nothing else happened. Because 2013 was a dead year. But I consider
2013 set the record that year, reset the record, or started the process of resetting the record for new record tornado minimums.
Yeah.
Annual tornado minimums.
Yeah.
That was the first year that, we saw less than 1,000 tornadoes in a year for a long time.
Going back to the 80s.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say a lot of those tornadoes, some tornadoes we didn't see. But
correct.
I mean, when you think about it, I would consider in the scope of things, for example, like there's the last year's what I would call the big tornado days. Dodge City, that storm that produced like a gazillion tornadoes.
Yeah.
I think it produced like over a dozen.
Yeah.
And
Dodge City Tornado Fest. Yeah.
Yeah. I would consider that, given the scope, I consider that maybe a 5 to 10 year event, given that the storm was producing a multitude of tornadoes. The amount of tornadoes, not that the magnitude was, but I was saying how many it was producing and the direction. It was kind of moving north to slightly northwest, because it was kind of like it was just a weird setup.
Yeah.
And it was just producing tornadoes all over the place. It was just those are those out of control storms that just want to it's like a tornado is like anything to them. So
yeah,
I would also consider And the other one that I think a lot of people would probably be significant of is Wynnewood, the tornado in
Wynnewood, Oklahoma. Yeah.
That I would consider that to be, on par with Moore 2013. Now that tornado was not as strong, and it didn't last as long. There was actually two, because the Wynnewood, the first one only lasted 20 minutes. And then the second one lasted maybe about the same amount of time. Both were large. Both were violent.
Yeah.
The first one was easily seen. The second one was rain wrapped, which you barely could see. But of the violence, and that day, the day of Wynnewood, there was a lot of tornadoes into southern Oklahoma. And there was a few in northern Oklahoma, not many, but a few. But I would consider that to be similar to the Moore tornado of 2013, because from what everybody remembers, on May 20th, 2013, how many tornadoes was there in Oklahoma?
A lot.
No, one.
Oh, really?
That's what most people remember. More.
Oh, yeah.
That storm, they thought, oh my gosh, because it produced EF5 damage. Typically EF5 tornadoes, thunderstorms, storms that produce EF5s, usually go on to produce tons of tornadoes. How many tornadoes did it produce? One. More. That's it. The storm went off into eastern Oklahoma. It never produced another tornado. May 19th, everybody remembers. May 19th, those thunderstorms were producing multitude of tornadoes. That was the Edmond tornado. Kearney, Oklahoma was hit. Shawnee, which was a devastating tornado because it went over a mobile home park. I don't know how that always happens, but it did.
Yeah.
And that day is remembered for the amount of tornadoes. May 20th, one. Nobody remembers any other tornado that day.
True.
And that's the thing. It only takes one, and everybody remembers the day. But then there's other days where there's like a lot of tornadoes and everybody forgets. Like, for example, April 15th, 2011. Nobody remembers that. And that was what I consider to be a 10-year event in the South, April 15th, because there was a lot of tornadoes, but there was only a few of them that were violent, similar to April 28th, 2014, but it's further south, like US 80 south. Very few of them were north of US 80. A few, but not many.
Yeah.
But when you consider the fact that you have generational events every 40 years or so, doesn't mean it's going to happen every 40 years. I think of the fact that at this point, we haven't had an F5, EF5 tornado since Parkersburg. That was in 2008.
Correct.
We're going on nine years this May. Before that, it had been 32 years. And then before that, we had a bunch of what were technically called the F5s. We had a bunch in the 60s. So, I mean, are we heading into a cycle where we're going to see some more tornadoes? I think at this point we've had some outbreaks here. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I've always said this because I said this to Dr. Gallus when I had him on the Polygon program a few years ago about these fall outbreaks. And it just seems to be that we're getting more and more of these. Veterans Day in 2015 was one.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
It's starting to get to the point that I'm starting to think the South has these secondary outbreaks. I'm starting to wonder if the Midwest is starting to get them. Not just Illinois, like the November outbreak you talked about when I was in the bathroom, but I'm talking about even in Iowa or anywhere. I mean, we just went through a year last year where we had tornadoes in Nebraska on Christmas.
Yeah.
What is up with that? And not more than and the Christmas before that, there were 2 tornadoes in Iowa 2 days before Christmas.
Correct.
So, I mean, we've gone, and I thought if we had tornadoes here on Christmas, which was a possibility in Iowa, or western Iowa, if we had a tornado on Christmas Day, it would have been the first time ever in Iowa that there were tornadoes in consecutive Decembers ever. 2 years in a row in December. It never happened, but it would have actually been completely shocking to see it two Decembers in a row with tornadoes in Iowa.
Yeah.
In another state, Alabama, Georgia, that happens quite frequently. Iowa, we're lucky if we see a tornado after the month of September. But lately we're getting a lot of them, so we'll have to see, because we've gone off on a tangent. So we were talking about severe weather. Why? Because nothing else is happening outside of what's coming up in February, like we mentioned, I think about an hour ago.
Yep.
But I know there's a lot of stuff coming up. I know Matt mentioned the symposium thing in Wheaton, Illinois.
May 11th, James Spann will be speaking. I'd love to go.
Yeah, it costs $40 because I looked it up. So
I'm not opposed to paying that, I don't think.
Well, I might be opposed to paying it because I don't want. So, I mean, there's that. There's one thing if I've always wanted to go to is the thing that Tom Skilling does.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've wanted to go to that.
Maybe we can forego James Spann if we go.
Yeah, James Spann can go out with. If we were going to go see James, I would rather go to Storm Alert Extreme in April in Birmingham to see him.
Yeah, that might be better anyways.
Because James would be more appropriate he would be there and he'd have to get on a plane to go back home. Whereas in Birmingham, you can just kind of track him down and kind of wrangle him.
That's true.
So,
but since we may forego that, I vote that we try and do Chaser Con.
This year?
Yeah, why not?
It's a little late.
Why? Have they already had it?
I think it's ChaserCon. I'm trying to look. ChaserCon is not that long from now. Let me go and look, because you're making dinner, or if you've eaten dinner and thrown it all up.
I'm getting ready to serve myself dinner.
Let's see. ChaserCon 2017 is in Colorado, but I already knew that.
In Denver.
Yeah. I'm trying to get my mother and I connected to try to get to Seattle so she could see her half brother. Seems like it's been taking forever to try to figure that out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. ChaserCon is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen.
But let me see. Well, but I'll see who's going to be there. So then we can feel so sad that we can't be there. Dr. Greg Forbes will be there.
That'll be a good talk.
Tim Marshall, former Polygon guest, will be there.
I want to see him.
John Davies, Josh Werman, and Karen Kosiba, Jason Persoff, Kim Ledoux, Mitch Dobrowner, and some other people that I'm not going to say their names, so I'll probably screw it up. But yeah, that's what's going on, because that's happening in 2 weeks. I know the Severe Weather Doppler Radar Conference, the thing you went to in Ankeny last year.
Yes.
Yep, and the end of March, early April. I don't think it's the same week. Come on. Wait a minute.
I think we should definitely go to the Ankeny conference.
Which one?
The The Severe Weather and Doppler Radar Conference.
In Ankeny. Yeah, March 30th through the 1st of April.
Yeah.
They have quite a number of people there already for discussion. So yeah, those you can register through that until St. Patrick's Day.
What's that?
You can register early until St. Patrick's Day for that event. But you have to become an NWA member. Are you an NWA member?
No, and I wasn't last year either, and I got in.
Yeah, but you can get cheaper rates for being one.
Well, I guess I better sign up for NWA, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I had to renew my membership for NWA.
Ah.
Because my NWA was coming up due on the 8th of February.
Ah.
So I had to pay my wonderful $65 for it. Yeah, it's $150 for, yeah, it doesn't say how much. It's like you pay $155 for anything. So that, yeah, you don't have to be. But the thing is, if you wanted to go to any other conference, like the annual meeting, that's where you would save a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I want to know where it's going to be after next year, not this year, where it's in California. Because by the looks of what they're going to have in this year's annual meeting, it doesn't look to be too exciting for going to, because it looks pretty blah. There's some meetings that are just blah.
And there's some meetings that are big.
Yeah, like Oklahoma City 2 years ago, which I went to. Last year's meeting was decent in Norfolk that I didn't get to go to because I was in the process of buying this house.
Yeah.
Meetings on the West Coast tend to be just blah. I don't know why. It just seems rather from what I can tell.
Because everybody's too busy enjoying the nice weather.
Well, it's September, but I mean, because you have to have your abstracts and all the stuff sent in soon for NWA. I mean, that's how quick it is with NWA. You have to have everything in like now. So, in fact, I have to see about this. Yes, I want to see the stuff. I mean, they're already starting to call. Yeah, abstracts for the annual meeting are due in a month. March 9th is when they're due. But as far as I know, it looks to be kind of because they have a thing of what they want the meeting to be about.
Yeah, a common thread, a common theme.
Putting science into service. It just doesn't scream excitement to me for some reason. From what I've been able to see, it just doesn't scream ooh ah. Sorry NWA, but you already took my $65 for this year, so I can bitch. So because I did it yesterday, so yeah, it just doesn't scream ooh ah to me. I mean, I still have enough time to see, because I want to see the schedule before I want to commit to even going to the annual meeting. And they typically do put up like a block of what's gonna take place. Now stuff will change, but you get a good idea of what's going to be where. At least that's what the case was when I went to Oklahoma City. I had an idea of what's going to be when. And they had that with Norfolk too, but before early registration came in.
Yeah.
They haven't even started registration for the annual meeting because they're not going to do that probably until mid to late March or something in September. So anyway, so other than that, there any other things to worry about or discuss?
I think we are good. I need to go eat me some dinner.
Yes, because Matt wants to go eat. So we're going to let Matt eat. I'm going to let myself kind of get my voice to recover from all this excitement and talking. So next week, we will round ourselves back up for another show. So we'll get ourselves together and do it at that time. So for Matthew, who's eating or going to be eating, and myself, Jeffrey, we bid you a good weekend and a good week, and come back next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everybody.